Hello and welcome to 12 Questions, a podcast where we dissect anything and everything with the same incisive set of queries. I'm Jonny.
And I'm Paris. And this week we have a special guest whose name is Edgar, right?
Haha, nice. Yes, hello.
Welcome, Edgar.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm not bad. I've got a cup of tea, so I am happy.
Edgar, could you tell us what film we're doing on the podcast?
We are doing one of my favourite films, which is either Hot Fuzz or The Incredibles, and spoiler alert, it is Hot Fuzz.
Oh, I'm so spoiled.
Yes. You have been spoiled.
Absolutely spoiled.
And
amazing.
I'm spoiled by the quality of this film. It's a film that we all love. To give you a sense of what the film is, if you haven't seen it, and with many of the films that we do, we'd recommend that you do go and see it. Hot Fuzz is a police drama, a film set in a sleepy town of Sandford.
In Gloucestershire.
In Gloucestershire, in which high-flying London Metropolitan Police Sergeant Nicholas Angel is assigned to the sleepy town and uncovers a series of grisly crimes and how that plays out.
Murders.
Murders.
Yes.
Directed by Edgar Wright, who and it's part of the Cornetto Trilogy of films with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It's an action comedy, lots of great British actors, lots of fun.
Yeah.
So without further ado, speaking of those great British actors, let's dive in with our first question.
Oh, and just before we do, spoiler warning.
Oh, spoilers, yeah.
As ever.
As ever.
So our first question, who was your favourite character?
There's a lot of good ones. And there's a lot of fantastic performances in this film. As we usually do, should we just go through a scattergun list of the characters?
Yep.
First character you see in the film, and the protagonist, you have Sergeant Nicholas Angel.
Played by Simon Pegg.
By Simon Pegg.
Initially starts off as police constable,
Yes.
Nicholas Angel, and then is offered a sergeant's position in Sandford.
Rather forced into a sergeant's position in Sandford and Gloucestershire.
Yes.
So this incredibly proficient police officer with an eye for procedure and the rules. He's all about following, official vocab guidelines and the official Met way of doing things. He acts in a completely proper and systematic way. Which puts him at odds with the more relaxed rural way of doing things.
Yeah.
What do we think of Nicholas Angel?
I like him, yes. I didn't know if he was a bit more of a... I don't know what the term is it Mary Sue? One of those sort of characters who can do anything.
Yeah, that's a Mary Sue,
is
yeah.
sort of inserted into the film as the chosen one who can do
good
anything.
point.
But no, I think they balance it well in that he's flawed, and they establish it quite early on that his dedication to the job and service to the police force,
Yes.
vocab guidelines state that force is too aggressive, but his service to the service has done his relationship a disservice. So no, I thought he would be a sort of... I mean, I've seen this film hundreds of times probably by now, but yes, they balance his character out very well, showing his relationship strain that his job has caused.
And indeed, narratively, his character is balanced quite well by his partner.
Yes.
Danny
Played by
Butterman.
Nick
Butterworth.
Frost.
Butterworth.
Yeah, Danny Butterworth, played by Nick Frost, who's a bit more the opposite end of the scale as
Yeah,
policeman goes.
he's very excitable because Simon Pegg is from the city,
Yeah.
so he's constantly like, oh, have you ever been in a high-speed chase? Have you ever fired 2 guns whilst flying through the air? He's very excited about this exotic city person.
We meet Danny when he is in a pub, and he's a background character initially, and he repeatedly orders a pint of lager, please, Mary, and he's eating peanuts out of a large wine glass like an ape. So immediately the contrast between the two officers is evident, because Angel comes in very sort of prim and proper and orders a cranberry juice, and then poor Danny is blundering about in the background. So I like the contrast that starts off straight away.
There's interesting you say it, there's this running theme of Danny being a monkey or an ape, isn't there?
Yeah, he wins the cuddly monkey at the toy fair, and he very comically, after they've set up the cordon and they've been waiting in the rain for an hour to see what's going on, he runs off in a strop with the cuddly monkey under his arm, but he himself is doing a bit of a weird run.
Yeah.
There is a bit in Shaun of the Dead where he does his ape impression, he does his monkey impression, and that's one of his tricks. So I think just his sort of cuddly nature sort of pushes him towards more...
It definitely rounds off some of Nicholas's sharp angles, you
Yes.
might say. Perhaps relating to his namesake and the misspelling of Angel as Angle in the film. So those are our crime-fighting duo.
Yep.
What about the rest of the village? Who have we got?
I really like the Swan.
The Swan,
I think
straight up.
he or she, I'm not good on bird gender politics, but he or she, they, the Swan, they have a sort of subplot throughout the film.
Yeah, tell us
and they
about
are pivotal in the last scene.
Yes.
We've gone spoilers, so that's okay. So the Swan goes missing halfway through the film, and I cannot remember the bloke who plays the farmer.
Stephen Merchant.
There we go. He's lost his swan. There's a bit of a gag of describing a swan, which you don't really need to do. It's a swan. But yes, and then later in the film, there is a grisly murder. An explosion occurs, and on the CCTV, there is the swan.
Yes.
And then later on, as the final police car chase ensues, the swan gets in the way of the villains and also helps to bring down the final villain in the end as well. So yeah, I really like the swan as a sort of honorary police officer. I think they do well.
Yeah, it's a great performance from an animal in this film.
It certainly is. Never worked with animals or kids, but
Unless it's a
swans
swan.
transcend that.
They can break a man's arm, you know.
True, or blow up his house.
Yes. So on with the more human cast.
Jim Broadbent's character, which
Yes.
is Danny's father,
Yes.
who is the main...
The head of the police force.
Yeah,
in
the head of the
Sandford.
police service.
Oh, sorry.
Police
Official vocab
service.
guidelines.
He has a very sort of tragic backstory in that his wife killed herself after Sandford's attempt at being the nicest village kind of went awry.
Mm-hmm.
His whole plot line is that he doesn't want anything to stand in the way of making Sandford the best village in the country
Yeah.
and winning all these awards, which drives him to murder lots of people.
Yeah. So we're initially introduced to him. He seems like a warm, kind of friendly figure. A very Jim Broadbent role,
Yeah,
you'd
Jim
say.
Broadbent is a very cuddly guy.
Exactly, yeah.
Exactly. He's a father figure in the film. I mean, he's literally the father of one of the characters, but he's a bit more of a father. And then when it's revealed that he's one of the main antagonistic forces in the film, he goes a little bit mad.
Yeah,
Bent.
yeah.
Speaking of people who are a little bit mad, I've got to bring out my boy Simon Skinner, as played by Timothy Dalton, underrated James Bond Timothy Dalton, who is, I think, fantastic in every scene he's in.
Yeah.
He's chewing the scenery. He is just really reveling in playing what seems like a really archetypical bad guy. So he spends the first half of the film as the main suspect for all the crimes that are going on.
Yeah.
And he keeps alluding to it in the wordplay. So let's drink to their demise. And I'm a slasher of prices. Lock me up, I need to be stopped.
Yeah.
He's definitely having a lot of fun. And he's got a great voice as well.
Yeah.
And it turns out he is guilty, but not alone.
He runs the supermarket in
The Summerfield.
in the village, so he's kind of your
As a throwback.
evil manager guy.
In fact, a nice point about his character is in his office in the Summerfield, he's got a picture of himself on the wall.
Yeah.
And that says so much about him.
Yeah, absolutely.
This kind of
definitely.
cheesy smile.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
And that's-
fantastic.
I think the moustache really.
Yeah,
adds to
it
you
does.
know.
Say it.
I don't know. It's just got that look about it.
And he's a very imposing presence. Like, he's a big guy. He's taller than the protagonist.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a good point. Nicholas is fairly short. I don't know if this is... I don't know how tall Simon Pegg is, but like when he's interacting with Stephen Merchant, for example, Stephen Merchant's like a foot taller than him.
Yeah.
And he always seems small
I
in
get the
relation to the
impression
other
Simon
characters.
Pegg is quite short.
Probably.
He's not a huge bloke. He's not like tiny. He's about the same as Nick Frost, I believe.
Yeah.
And they're sort of, I don't know how tall they are in numbers, but yeah, they're sort of normal sized blokes. But yeah, especially next to Dalton,
Yeah.
big sort of melodramatic villain with a tash that he can twirl. And yeah, no, he's not huge, but yeah, the difference is definitely notable.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because if they wanted to make Simon Pegg look taller, they could have, moving magic, but they didn't.
Robert Downey Jr. is genuinely tiny.
Oh, yeah?
And there's scenes in
Really?
Iron Man where he's talking to Pepper Potts, and he's literally stood on a box.
Oh, yeah.
So that he's a little bit taller than
The old-
Gwyneth Paltrow, because
the old
she's a
Tom Cruise.
tallish lady. Yeah, so yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is tiny, but they make Iron Man look like a normal bloke. But no, yeah, Downey Jr. is a small boy. So yeah, if they wanted to make Simon Pegg imposing, they could have done. But I think it's
Maybe that's why he's
Underdog.
on the police service and not the police force.
maybe yes, yeah.
So
So sort of gentle character.
We've got a whole lot of other villages to get through.
Oh,
We're
so-
talking about Iron Man
I mean,
instead.
our favourite character is a
Is
sort
it?
of. I don't know. Mine's the Swan, or
Okay.
I do like Bill Bailey's character.
Oh, yes,
slash
that's right.
characters. Yeah. So when Simon Pegg takes Danny to the station, and then all the students who are in the pub as well, the underage drinkers, he comes to the station, and Bill Bailey is on the desk. He's one of the PCs on the desk, and he's very sort of intelligible. He tells Danny to go and find a cell to sleep in till the morning, and then later on in the film comes back and it's a different bloke, and nobody tells me nothing. And
Nobody
he doesn't
tells
know
me
anything about the cell. Yeah, and it's not a very sort of deep character arc, and it's revealed at the end that they're twins or they're related and they have the same face. But I just like that as a very Edgar Wright thing to include that. It's not a very deep character, but it's a very funny one. I like it.
There are lots of little bit part characters that really steal the show.
There are, yes, yeah.
I particularly like the living statue.
Oh yeah.
But more because of how people react to the living statue, because there's the villagers, the sort of villager council that are the people that basically plot all these murders to keep the village looking tip-top. They have a real issue with the living statue, who is a blight on the village, because, you know... And it just makes me laugh, because I always see them in the city centre and I'm like, they just...
They play
cool,
on that as well.
It's cool, but also, like, they do look a bit weird, and I'm not a big fan of them, so I just find it really funny that, like, this village obviously hates them.
In their first meeting, and we'll come back to the fact that it's the NWA, in their first meeting of the Neighbourhood Watch Alliance, it's a very dramatic opening, it's a very big build-up to what's going to be on the projector, and it turns out to be this living statue, and you can see Angel's face just sort of drops, and he thinks it's a serious thing, and he gets his police brain going, and then it's a living statue.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to the
relates
kind of...
to Paris.
I think that really speaks to the sort of culture shock with him moving from the city to the village. Like, the biggest problem they have is this living statue.
Yeah. So that struck a personal chord with you, Paris. You
I guess.
empathise with that.
Not a fan. I wouldn't murder one, though, you know, just putting that out there.
Would you?
I think we can make some honourable mentions for characters, though. I'd love to talk about the Andys.
Yeah.
Yes.
The two detectives who are both named Andrew, who
Yeah.
both have moustaches, and are just slagging off and being sarcastic to our
talking
protagonist.
to him.
They
It's
bounce off
a-
each other very well.
It's an uphill struggle.
Yeah. Oh, very
They're called
nice.
the Andes.
They do one of my absolute favourite moments in the film, actually, when they're kind of
That
given...
bit?
Yeah. Well, Edgar's
That's good.
gesturing.
That's good for a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a bit visual.
They're sort of giving Nicholas Angel the eye, and then they leave the frame, one at a time, and then one just pops back into frame and then out.
Yeah.
And it's just such a clever
So
little...
beautifully timed, and I don't know if it
Yeah.
was intentional or not, but it's just a very good
It
moment.
catches you off guard.
Yeah.
You're just not expecting it, and it's so simple and so good.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, the Andys are a lot of fun. Also, what's the name of the farmer? Spot Bother up at Farm.
Elroy's farm.
Elroy Farm, yeah. Played by...
The bloke who plays Finch.
Filch.
In Filch.
Oh, David Bradley.
Yeah, David Bradley's character,
yeah.
who is completely unintelligible.
Yeah, I really love that bit.
Mombo.
It's pretty
What
good.
did he say? Yeah, no, I really like that. That's a good play on... Yeah, my nan lives in sort of deepest countryside in England, and there are a lot of people, it's a bit more Hereford accent, but there are people who you just cannot understand, and you have to get nan to translate into normal English, southern twang, please, so you can understand it. Yes, I know, I like the sort of realism of the comedy. It's good.
So a host of very memorable characters from throughout the village and the police service. So moving on to our next question. Guys, what was our favourite colour in this piece?
Straight away now, I've been sort of not researching for being on the podcast, but I've been in my sort of natural YouTube trawl. I find movie reviews and sort of visual essays for things. And one of the things I didn't know was a movie trope or a film trope, because I'm English. It was orange and teal.
Yes.
It's apparently a thing, and it's a very... I never noticed it in films. I didn't know it was specific to any director or producer or anything like that. I thought it was a movie trope. Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, yeah.
There is a definite orange scene, I believe. I've not actually seen it yet, but from the trailers, there's scenes based on Australian dust storms that are very sunlit and they're orange. And then there's other scenes with the futuristic lighting and things like that, and the blue light from phone screens that we can relate to. There's a lot of blue.
Yeah.
And that carries over into Hot Fuzz, or rather was a trope before all of this.
Yeah.
And that a lot of these scenes from London are colder, they're more blue.
Yeah,
and especially more tense scenes in the film, even in Sandford, are bluish. And then with things like the candles in the pub and the street lights of the village, and with fire as well from explosions and such, like, there is a lot of orange, or a lot of, not very much red, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, a lot of orange. So my favourite colour is either the cold blue or the warmer orange, or even just the contrast between the two.
Yeah, well, just to pick up on that, actually, I only really noticed it this time around, but the film is a definite homage to kind of guns blazing, balls to the wall action films. And Michael Bay is obviously, I think, referenced a lot. They show clips from Bad Boys 2, for example, and they reference that directly. And he's really, if you want a guy to have that blue and orange colour palette, it's Michael Bay.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting what you bring up about how the orange comes from streetlights and candles and stuff, and the blue comes from the police force. That in Michael Bay's films, the orange comes from like the California sun setting. You know, it's all color graded up the wazoo, so the characters are completely orange in the sunset and that sort of thing. But here, the orange comes from the English countryside, so it's very much a microcosm of the film. It's this Michael Bay action film color grading, but recreated using English, rural sources like streetlights and the pub and that is orange instead of the California sun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I really like.
Yeah.
Paris, any thoughts about colour in this film?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really top what you guys have said, but I wanted to... You did well. I wanted to add, like Edgar said, there isn't a lot of red in the film.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting because red you only really get in blood in the film, but there's not a lot of real blood. Most of the blood is fake blood, like with the ketchup and with the bolognese sauce. I just thought it was really interesting that... Because a lot of cop films are can be very bloody and gruesome, whereas this is obviously taking the mick out of it, so it's kind of even taken the mick out of blood in general, and you just have the fake blood as bolognese and ketchup instead.
Yeah, I think that shows the sort of British transfer of it, because we might come back onto this a little bit later as well, in that it meets the American style cop genre of, like you said, a lot of blood, a lot of sort of gratuitous, gun down a group of people, whereas in this one, because it's more British and we're not accustomed to guns, there's pseudo blood, there's Dolmio Bolognese, there's immediately after one of the murders there's a very dramatic Edgar Wright-ish shot of a cranberry juice being poured quite sloppily. So I think an outwards appearance of violence and blood and horror, but with Edgar Wright's sensibilities and being very English.
Yes.
I hope that's the motivation anyway, I would hope so. Yeah, it's a lot of not fake outs, but outwardly it looks very bloody and gory. But if you look at what's actually happening, it's a bit safer. Yeah,
and just to pick up on some of the notes of the colour, for red specifically, we don't see much of it in the lighting apart from one scene just before the third act of the film. So, as you may have gathered, the first two acts of the film are a more subdued investigatory affair. So it's a police constable looking for a crime. And then in the third act, it turns it all on its head and it becomes a complete cop film shootout. It becomes the very thing it's been saying, isn't realistic. But in the scene just before the third act, both the characters are lit in red. It's the red of Danny's taillights on his car. And it's quite a distinct look for the film. And I think that shows that's representative of the ensuing bloodshed, that it goes it's going from ketchup blood to real blood and the red lighting.
It's definitely a turning point. And if I could take control completely of your podcast and move us on to the third question.
Please.
What was your favourite meeting?
Yes, and as we discussed, it's a metaphorical meeting of sorts of the more gratuitously violent American cop genre with the British sensibilities of not much guns. That's not proper sentence, but not many guns. And like you say, the distinctly sort of blood red almost scene that we have that's very dramatically lit is definitely a turning point, and that could almost be the pinpoint of where the two genres meet.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that Edgar Wright said with this film he was kind of thinking there isn't much of a tradition of cop films in the UK film industry, and that's what he was trying to remedy with this. But it's interesting that they take such a parodying kind of approach to that.
No one actually dies. There's I don't know if there is anyone who genuinely dies.
Well, people are murdered.
The people who were murdered.
At the end, no one dies though. In the last shootout, which is kind of what's interesting about it, because in an American film, in the last shootout, everybody dies.
Well, lots of people,
so
the meeting between the American sensibilities of filming and the English setting.
Changing it back to a more literal sense of the question, I love it when we meet. Is it Bill Nye's character?
Yes.
Kenneth. You want to? They're very dramatic build-up. Simon Pegg wants to protest his sort of forced exile, and he wants to call the chief inspector down. And
you really want to bother him with this?
Yeah, Alan Partridge.
You want to take this to the top?
Alan Partridge, not Alan Partridge. Steve Coogan, that's it. He reaches for the phone. It's all very dramatic. You want me to bother the chief inspector with this? Kenneth! And then he walks in. It's all very friendly. Yes, no, that's my favourite meeting. Just from the sheer comedy of it, it's a very good build-up and a very good payoff.
I'm a big fan of that as well.
That's a British comedy.
I also really love the meeting with David Bradley, which we've kind of alluded to, the farmer, when they can't, the translation has to go through several layers. Like, the other policeman has to translate it, and then Danny has to translate it further, and then Simon Pegg is like, Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I really loved the meeting. Again, I've touched on it before. The first meeting with Simon Skinner, where the music suddenly changes.
Yes, yeah.
Sergeant Angel is jogging along, and then suddenly Timothy Dalton bursts into frame. So it's I'm a Sasha, lock me up.
Sasha of prices.
Yes, and then
My discounts are criminal.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it goes from we are the Village Green Preservation Society, and it shows this lovely rural setting.
Yeah.
That's one of the few times that there's luscious green in the film.
You think?
To show the... Because a lot of it is, like we say, inside or in a pub or in a theatre and things like that. But there's a distinct shot of some fields with that song. Mm-hmm. And then, like you say, the music changes and Skinner comes in all sinister. Perfect.
All right, so some great meetings in this film. To call back to someone we've already heard referenced in this very podcast, Edgar and Paris, how would your nans react to this?
Now, I've heard this podcast before, and I know that we are meant to answer this question with the General Nan.
The General Nan?
General Nan. For listeners, we are saluting the General Nan. I very distinctly said that, my nan lives in the country, and I don't know if we have shown this film to her. I'm sure she would have seen us watch it, because our family do have it quite a lot. Yep. But my nan lives basically in the setting of this film, and I hope there's not many murders.
Or any
murders, hopefully. Yeah, shout out to Nanny Denny's.
Hey.
She lives in this sort of setting anyway, and I think if she did get the concept of a little bit of jabbing fun at the country folk, I think she'd take it with good humour. She wouldn't mind.
Does she know any farmers' mums?
Farmers' mums? She knows plenty of farmers, yes. There's farmers literally across the road. And I think if she does realise that it's a bit of a Mickey take, that's fine. She wouldn't mind. But if she doesn't get it, I think it'd just integrate into her brain a little bit, and she'd see it as a cop drama. My granddad used to love this sort of film anyway, of proper British films.
It is proper British.
And I think with such a huge cast of English people, and Edgar Wright being and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, the cast and crew are all very English, very patriotic in this sense. I think my nan would really like this. But
Paris, would you agree? Would your nan like this?
On the cross
I mean,
side of
we
things.
were meant to be doing the General Nan, but it never works out that way, does it?
It's a nan battle royale. Nan v nan.
I don't think my nan would like it, because it's very, very sweary.
Okay.
It's very violent, and it is. Perhaps it could be seen as unnecessarily violent.
Gratuitous.
Yeah.
Even with
in that
pseudo-blood
they just
and-
murder people so that their village will be pretty. I mean, that's not
Who
a
doesn't
great
want a pretty village?
justification.
It is a very dark concept.
Yeah.
Back to the swearing, there is a swear jar in the police
Yes,
station,
yes.
which I thought was a nice...
I think she could
nice-
respect the swear jar, you know.
I think it's a great visual gag on a swear jar that all the words are censored, so they'll put an asterisk between the F and the C of the F word, for example, except for the C word at the bottom, which is completely uncensored.
Absolute capital letters just at the bottom.
That's a great gag. So your nan wouldn't be a fan of the swearing and the violence?
I don't think so. She might appreciate some elements of it. She'd definitely appreciate the cast, because it's very good classic British actors.
That is
cast.
true. Some fantastic talent.
Might know Bond.
Yeah, of
There's a
course.
right sort of era for that Bond, I suppose.
Yeah.
Since this is a specific nan week, I'll chime in. My uncle is a police officer in Dorking in Surrey.
I thought you would say my uncle is my nan. What?
Same person.
Yeah, same person.
No, my uncle, who is obviously my nan's son, that's how it works. He's a rural police officer in Dorking in Surrey, so he loves this film.
Close to home.
Yeah,
good.
He absolutely loves this film because I think he relates to aspects of the paperwork and procedure and working with farmers who you can't understand. So I think when this film is properly contextualized, I mean, if you take it at face value and you see blood and violence and gore or whatever, I can see how you might be turned off by it. But once it's properly contextualized in the police genre, I think that's when the real charm lies. So presumably my uncle will have explained it to my nan. So I think my nan's probably for this film, or at least sees the appeal.
Very good.
So we have a positive, negative, and ambivalent nan.
Yeah.
Very good.
So
talk to your nan before you watch this film.
Full nan approval
Conditional.
continuum there.
Continuum, yes.
That's the word I was going for.
So question 5, if this were a food, what would it be?
Well, food is pretty prominent in this film, actually.
It is.
One thing I noticed, they really make no effort to hide brands. So, and I think that really grounds the film in authenticity. Like, you see so many food products. You see Maryland's cookies, you see Strongbow cider, you see Galaxy chocolate, you see Grolsch beer. You know, it's very genuine.
Yeah, and I think that helps with the sort of realism of the the film. In that, they've not tried to make I don't know how they got round it, or if that wasn't a thing back in the day of 2007.
Feels like a real place, though.
Yes, it's a real place. They've not had to make generic sweets.
Yes. And one bit of food that prominently features is the cornetto.
Yes,
And not without reason.
Yes, and this was I believe it's just the vanilla, just the plain cornetto is the blue wrapper.
The blue one, yeah.
Brings us back to the blue of the police service.
Yes.
Yeah, so in Shaun of the Dead, they have the strawberry cornetto, red, because Shaun has blood on him.
Yes.
He's got red on him.
Yep.
Yeah, they have the strawberry cornetto there. And then in World's End, which is the spiritual third in the Cornetto trilogy, a wrapper flies by at the end, and it's a green wrapper. It's a mint.
Yeah.
I don't know if green has any significance in the film, because there's a lot of blue in that film as well, what with the ink of the blanks. But yeah, it does. It flies past, a wrapper flies past after the apocalypse, and he misses it. So, on face value, on a sort of cult level, as it's the Cornetto trilogy, you could say that this film would be a cornetto.
How else would a cornetto be this film? Any thoughts about that?
Oh, goodness. Paris, I'm good with metaphors.
Well, it's quite a cool colour palette, as we mentioned. Lots of blues. So
yes,
like
quite
nice
cold, metropolitan.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something very cold about the people that are constantly plotting murders.
Oh, okay.
But then that's also a contrast with, it's a contrast with the fact the title is Hot Fuzz.
Ah, yes, of
that
course.
if you're characterising it with a cold ice cream, I suppose it sort of represents the fact that the film isn't really what you expect.
Yes,
you're expecting
true.
a cop drama, and then halfway through the film it turns out it's this really grisly murder plot.
Yes. I propose a counterpoint to cornetto. I think this film is a big ham.
A big ham.
Big ham.
Explain,
not
boy.
a slice of ham.
Explain your ham.
I got the idea from it. There's an action sequence that takes place at a butcher's counter in a supermarket.
Yes.
So you see all the various meats there. And so you could draw the rather more obvious parallel that some might refer to the police as the givers of said ham.
Yes, the pigs.
As rather porcine, which does tie into the central antagonists of the film, the Neighbourhood Watch Alliance, or as you mentioned, Edgar, the NWA.
Yes, NWA,
famous
famed
for their songs disparaging the
group.
police. Yes.
I'm not a particularly virulent fan of these people. Not because I don't like their music, just I'm not in the right social group to enjoy their music, I don't think.
I think anyone can enjoy their music.
Yeah, definitely.
But,
I've never got into them, is what I mean.
Yeah, but they certainly wouldn't be fans of the police, and I think they would share the sentiment of a ham regarding the police service.
We've said this in a very politically correct way.
Well, yes, we've said this according to official service guidelines.
Yes, it's vocab guidelines. We put this very delicately.
But
that the NWA are not fans of the police,
No.
and so would call them pigs.
Yes.
And as the parallels with the butcher's counter.
Quite well, and it's not
Could
just
be.
that a ham is very. It's like a Sunday roast, and there's a question in the film a couple of times repeated. What's your perfect Sunday?
Oh.
You have that lovely English town. You've got pubs. You've got the village
Jam and
fetes. Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
So you have the blood red of the ham, but you have the comfort of the English countryside.
I like that.
I
That's
think
good.
I think a ham could represent this
Yeah.
film. How do you feel about that?
Very
Paris?
good.
No, you present a convincing case.
Yes, very good. I had a thought that
Yes.
this film could be a good old-fashioned and slightly drunken eaten. So you're down a few pints already.
yeah, of course.
Pint of lager, please, Mary.
Yes, Mary.
A packet of peanuts.
Oh yeah,
A pub
okay.
peanuts. So a lot of it takes place in the pub, which is called the
Crown.
We'll come back onto that later.
We will.
As I said, Danny, we meet Danny as he's shoveling through a large wine glass of peanuts.
Yeah.
It's classic pub food, and I think I didn't have any deeper meaning to that.
Okay,
there's a lot of peanuts in the film. I like a bag of peanuts when I go to the pub, and there was a lot of drinking in the film.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very, again, British sensibility. It's
Yeah.
it's a very English film.
I suppose the pub is a very central point of
Yes.
the film. Like they often
Yeah.
go to the pub, and that's a theme throughout all the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Hold
Of
up in the
course.
Winchester till it all blows over.
Absolutely.
And he actually offers round a peanut when they're all sitting
Yeah,
waiting for the
so
horde.
so the peanut kind of reflects the British pub, the British, the
Very good.
Britishness, basically.
All right, so peanuts for starters, ham for main course, and a cornetto for dessert.
It's a-
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, this is
Perfect
a great
accompaniment.
meal. I
There we
love
go.
it.
And
To this
with
film.
cranberry juice, please.
So if we want to move on to question 6,
I love
which is our
Paris.
favourite to exclaim wildly.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Oh my god.
I will collect my Oscar later.
Exactly. This is a tricky one because this film is very tightly put together.
Yes.
Pretty much everything that's set up is paid off. You'll have things said at the start of the film
Yes.
which resolve at the end.
Certainly.
Like F off down the model village, and then the model village is the final action
Yeah.
set piece. Oh.
They bring through the Andes, the investigative Andes, ask if they want to go through the whole phone book asking people and put a call into Aaron A. Aronson.
Yes.
And then who should the child be in the last confrontation but Aaron Aronson?
Yes.
And yeah, there's a lot of references when he goes into the shop. Nice arse on him, and then later it's get a look at his horse.
Yes. Or when the Andes say everyone and their mums is pack and eat round here, like who? Farmers, and who else? Farmers' mums, and then at the start of the third act you see father's mum who was pack and eat.
If I can pause there and say that my why would you do that is kick a nan. Why would you kick a nan?
Okay, tell us about that.
She's got a gun.
She has got a gun, and
that's about what happens.
I do agree. So in the when Nicholas Angel returns, he comes back from his fake out stabbing, cause ketchup. That's another reference in itself. When he stabs himself in the eye and it's ketchup, Angel gets stabbed by Danny, or fake stabbed, and there's pseudo blood in the form of ketchup. He comes back in Danny's car and then steals one of the big white horses. But before he does that, he punches a farmer in the face. And as the farmer's mum, with her gun, is about to reload the shotgun, he runs, vaults over the wall, and kicks a 90-something-year-old woman in the nose.
You're not a fan of that?
I'm not a fan of that. I like old ladies. Not in a strange way, because Paris gave me a look earlier. But no, I have a nan, so I would not like to see her kicked in the face by a 30-something-year-old police officer.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a personal point.
Fair enough. Paris, any quibbles as to why they would do that in the film?
I mean, she did have a gun, so that's fair enough.
It's alright, I guess, okay.
Yeah, I mean, no, I see what you mean. Like, she did have a gun, but I feel like there was a calmer way he could have handled it. Like, he could have easily wrestled the gun off her because she was like 90. He didn't have to literally vault and come down with his foot.
Yes. I don't know, I quite like that because it shows in a very clear way that the film's tone has changed.
Yes,
it's
true.
Like,
Actually,
no messing about. You know, now we're going to kick an old woman in the face. Yeah, this is the film we're watching now.
Excellent. Yeah.
My personal... It's a little quibble, and you could say of how good the film is by the fact that I'm even mentioning it.
Oh, definitely.
So there's in terms of music, there's licensed songs used in the film, which I think are used very well. Again, back to my favourite character, Simon Skinner. Whenever he's driving by a crime scene, he's playing appropriate music.
Yes.
He plays Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits when the two amateur dramatic actors have been killed. He's playing Fire by The Crazy World of Arthur Brown when someone's been set on fire.
Destroy all
Exactly. So that use of music is great. But the kind of the composed score for it, the music, I think is a bit mediocre.
Underwhelming.
Yeah, it's used well. There's a great bit of brass, which brass is never heard throughout the film until you see Nicholas with all his guns and everything riding through the town. And that's classic Wagnerian heroes theme. Heroes are always represented by brass.
Yes.
But I think the main melody, the theme of the film is a bit naff. I looked up the composer, David Arnold, and I knew I recognised his style because he's done some of the Daniel Craig Bond films, and he uses those same sort of smooth violin notes, the kind of na 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 na, which he uses in Casino Royale for the
romantic scenes. Yeah,
he uses that between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's character, which is a bit funny. But overall, the music doesn't really stand out.
Yeah, but do you not think that's because it's going into the tradition of like your typical generic cop films? Okay. It's sort of taking the mick out of that, but just keeping with the same musical themes.
It's generic enough to be sort of incidental music, and I think it's good that it would be nice to have this swelling, action-packed score as well. But I think, having something a bit more... not monotonous, but it could have been grander.
Do you think that's the note that David Arnold got from Edgar Wright? Like, write me a boring score.
Well, I think as well, like the dialogue is so tightly done in this film, and the dialogue really does the talking.
Paris?
Wow. I feel like having a mediocre score lets the dialogue do the talking.
Okay, so it handles most of the emotional weight. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Although
the score is just a backing.
Yeah.
That's not hugely important, so I've never even really noticed the score.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Which I think is the point.
Okay, fine. So very few quibbles and wondering why they do that in the film. Anything else from you guys?
Yes. One last thing is just a quick note because we're English and we don't know how to use guns.
No.
But for such a prolific alliance as the Neighbourhood Watch, in the final shootout scene, Angel is sheltering behind a fountain, or the fountain wall, and the lady who runs the news agents smashes out her window with what I assume is semi-automatic gun of some sort, and proceeds to take single, badly aimed shots at Angel.
She has such a clear shot on him, doesn't she?
Yeah, beautiful clear shot because he's facing that window, and you can see that the bullets splinter the fountain behind him. They crumble the rock right next to his shoulder, and with such a impressive gun
Yes.
to take single shots and then smash out her own window and miss several times for a full magazine's worth of ammo.
Yes.
It's slightly unlikely, and I know it's meant to be this absurdist shootout where no one actually dies, but I thought that was a little bit...
Too unrealistic.
Yes, a little bit, yeah.
Unrealistically unrealistic.
Practically, yeah.
Yeah, because I think the fact that we noticed it is the thing. So
Yeah.
when you see an old lady riding down the street on a bicycle, dual-wielding pistols,
Yeah.
it makes sense because it's internally consistent.
It's possible,
all ridiculous, and it's sort of like you kind of go with it. But when you see this other woman with the big gun missing, that it takes you out of it just a little bit because it seems wrong. So I think it's inconsistent with the film's
Just
kind of
a
crazy
little
action
note,
tone.
but that annoyed me because he could have died.
He could,
And it's not like when the vicar shoots him and his vest protects him.
Yes.
It's just that she misses with a full round of
Yeah,
bullets.
exactly.
Single shots and,
Flipping useless.
Yeah.
awful.
So I think that's a summary of what we'd ask why they do that with the film. Moving on to the question of the historical significance and context of this piece. Paris, as our resident historian, do you want to kick us off?
The pressure.
Here we go.
I always think this kind of reminds me of the sort of counter-revolution within history.
Oh, yeah?
So,
tell us more about
the
that.
majority of times when you have a revolution, you have a counter-revolution. The people that want to not have a revolution and to revert back to the old regime, essentially. So, to me, Simon Pegg's character is the sort of revolution, like he's bringing in all this new stuff. I mean, he is the driving force of the whole thing.
He's very liberal.
The force of he's the force of change throughout this whole thing. Whereas the NWA are the counter-revolution.
Sorry.
Are you going to chuckle every time we say that?
Yes,
honestly?
yes, we are.
They are the counter-revolution because they're very traditionalist. They want to make Sandford great again, but
Yeah, that's
going back to
used,
going back to the old how Sandford used to be. It used to be
Yes.
lovely before all the hoodie infestation and everything. Another thing that sort of puts Simon Pegg's character into being a revolutionary is that there's always a theme within revolutionary discourse of altering the lexicon and bringing in new language.
Yeah, new words.
And Simon Pegg's character is constantly correcting and being like, you can't say manpower, it's sexist.
Yeah.
You can't say
Accident.
policewoman, it's a police officer.
Yeah.
Being a woman has nothing to do with it. So he's got that kind of linguistic element of being a revolutionary.
And speaking of revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries, you see a sort of pattern emerge in the modern period with revolutions in which revolutionaries feel they have to do certain behaviours, like put up barricades and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a
And
particular
then-
theme in France.
Exactly, and then the establishment kind of feels it has to do certain behaviours. So, like, they're both performing a role. So it's kind of known that the revolutionaries will do this, and then the government will do this.
They
that
both
sort
have
of
a
thing.
game plan in the final shootout.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you see that in the film when the police are all dressed up in riot gear, or when everyone kind of knows what to do. It's like that. They have a game plan already. Even the officer who's always portrayed to be clueless and asking Nicholas Angel what to do, in that moment he knows exactly what to do. It's kind of a nice reversal that he sets the game plan. So that's the kind of link with the.
And certainly the context between revolution and counter-revolution
Yes.
does come off like a civil war in that they are literally all shooting each other. And that's, historically that's usually what happens between a revolution and counter-revolution.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that the pub is called the Crown, and then the hotel is the Swan, property of the Crown as well.
Yes, sorry, I've taken a bit of a back seat on this one to make way for the
Your thoughts on
historian.
counter-revolution?
Yes, quite. I wouldn't go in that much detail because I don't know enough about
That's fair.
revolutions and such. But I thought in a historical, in sort of contemporary history,
Yes.
Simon Pegg's. This is one of Simon Pegg's more major pieces of work that because he's had a good career now since this. They did World's End again with Edgar Wright. That was with Nick Frost as well.
Yep.
Preceding Hot Fuzz was Shaun of the Dead, and preceding that was Spaced with Jessica Haynes, I believe her name is, and various other actors at the time. And that was the start of Simon Pegg's comedy career, and this is one of the peaks, I think, where he got to a certain standard, and this was a very popular film following the popular release of Shaun of the Dead, which still has a cult following today. Yeah, and I think since then, now he's written, I think, the two most recent Star Trek films.
Yeah. He's done well for himself.
Yeah, I think this will be noted as a
breakthrough?
Yes, well, yeah, a higher peak in Simon Pegg's career. Certainly Shaun of the Dead was a little bit... it was more of a cult film, more of a sort of classic British comedy. It wasn't a worldwide smash sort of thing. But then I've heard overseas podcasts of people discussing Hot Fuzz, and then retrospectively talking about Shaun of the Dead, and then talking about World's End. So the Cornetto Trilogy as a whole is a notable point in Pegg's life. But yeah, then past that, I think this will be known as one of Pegg's major moments.
Well, speaking of notable people, if you were to get into our...
what a segue!
Into our official time machine, the official time machine of the podcast that we keep in our house.
Yep.
And you can go back in time.
I've seen it, it's great. It's purple and shiny.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Don't tell them our secrets.
Well, part of it is purple
But it
and
does
shiny.
match our logo.
Oh,
It
yeah.
does, it
so
certainly
nice.
does.
It's very on brand. We'd like to know who in history will we give this piece of work to?
I had one single thought,
Yes.
and it was a very instant thought,
Well,
that I would take this digital versatile disc back to Sir Robert Peel.
Oh, yeah.
The founder of I believe, the Metropolitan Police Force.
Yeah, the peelers.
The Peelers, the Cheez-It's the Rozzers, short for Roberts, I believe. I have no
Okay.
idea.
I didn't know
But yeah, certainly the Peelers. And it was just my gut reaction, because it's based on Hot Fuzz, as in the Undertones song, and I'm sure it was a phrase before that.
Yeah.
Caught by the fuzz, the feds, the po-po.
Yeah.
Because so I think showing Sir Robert Peel the film Hot Fuzz would be an indication of how successful his notion has been. The concept of a police force is so ingrained and so sort of intrinsic to our life now. So yeah, I think it would be heartening for him to see that this concept has been such a established, that's the word, part of British culture and indeed culture worldwide, that we can go to the extent of basing a film off it and basing a concept from the police force into a film. I've said that in a very roundabout and sloppy way.
Okay. He would see his legacy.
He would see his legacy. That's a one sentence to prove my answer there. No, but that, perfect. Yeah, so if we could get past the fact that he would be very confused, a purple sphere has arrived in his office and a small boy has walked out with this shiny disc and shown him moving photos, then, once we've got past that, have a riotous good time with British comedy.
Yes.
I
I wonder, not a specific person to say, but I wonder what someone from the 60s and 70s would make of this.
Ooh.
Because Nicholas starts out as a very, very modern police officer. He goes by the book, he's very fair, very liberal. And by the end of the film, he kind of goes through a transformation. And the last scene of the film, they're in his cop car and they get a call that there are some hippie types messing with the bins.
Yeah.
And then he puts the sunglasses on, let's rock and roll.
Fire up the roof.
Fire up the roof, yeah. And so it's almost like he's accused indirectly in the film of being a fascist at the start.
Yes.
Which he seems to be the opposite of at the start, and he's trying to be fair and liberal. But by the end of the film, he sort of becomes a bit of a fascist.
Almost, yeah.
I mean, he's sort of... who knows how brutally they're going to put down this hippie uprising at the bins. But the 60s and 70s, a time of lots of forceful police, definitely a police force in certain places around the world in the 60s and 70s. And I don't know, I just don't know what they'd...
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
It's interesting. I mean, it certainly speaks to the idea that progress is kind of an illusion and things don't quite
really
move on. I think that's,
History
certainly an argument
repeats
people make.
itself.
Yes.
Yeah, history repeats itself. It,
Yeah.
it kind of fits with that theme if the police force is still
I
quite
would
brutal.
say it might be notable for them, from someone from that era, that the police force at that time was seen as I don't know the historical context, you'd be better at this,
big
but
one.
a negative thing at the time.
Well, certainly by the protesting groups.
Yeah, and they were the establishment, and that was But then the establishment in this film are the villagers, the people in the village, and then it's the police that are the protesters to that. So it'd be interesting to see their reaction.
It's also worth pointing out, you say the police force is, forceful.
Service?
Yeah.
But you say that they're very forceful, but it's also worth pointing out that in the final shootout, he doesn't kill anybody. He purposely doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
So how brutal Simon Pegg's police character is by the end of it is still up for debate, I'd say.
I guess. I mean, I'm not going to give him a badge for not killing anyone. He still hurts a lot of people with a gun.
Of course, but it's not...
They have done
completely fascist,
several
I suppose.
murders each between them over the last, week.
Okay, moving on from the more historical looks into this film, looking into the future.
The future!
So, on to our next question is, when will this film be forgotten? And I'm going to start right away in that I think it's sort of is already starting to be forgotten.
Okay.
So it's a great film. We all like it. It's still talked about. Look at us talking about it now. We'll still quote it every now and again. But I don't think it's had a huge cultural impact in the way some other films do.
Yeah.
Like, you won't see it parodied on Saturday Night Live or anything like
No,
that.
true.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
I think we don't need to dwell on this film. This was a great film.
Yeah.
Really funny, very tight.
Yeah.
But this is a stepping stone for people like Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost to do better things.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we should dwell on this for too long.
I was going to protest what you were saying and say that, no, it's amazing, it's never going to be forgotten. But no, I like what you say, because, not being that huge scale film that some are, that then gets parodied so much or gets referenced so much and everybody likes it. I think the Cornetto Trilogy has a very definite cult following.
Yes.
And although it'll fade out, and it probably already has faded from the public consciousness, I think, the few cult followers like myself who watch it all the time will still remember it for years to come.
Yeah.
I like that it's not a huge thing, that it's not such a cult following that, like Rick and Morty has become such and everyone knows about it, everyone watches it now. But the first couple of series, I certainly wasn't aware of it at all. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
But now, as a layperson, I know of it and I watch it as well. Yeah, and it would have been a shame because they debated a sequel to Shaun of the Dead where Shaun had more adventures.
Oh, wasn't it going to be called From Dusk Till Shaun?
Yes, yeah. So they were going to continue Shaun's journey or, do something more with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that if Shaun of the Dead had been loads more popular, that would have happened. So if we extend that analogy to Hot Fuzz, I wouldn't have liked it as much.
Nah.
I don't think. I think the people who still enjoy Hot Fuzz as a sort of a really amazing film, as opposed to just a good film, as most people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been a shame if it was really popular and then got a sort of substandard sequel. World's End is certainly a spiritual sequel, but it's definitely a separate film.
Yeah. Interesting discussing, when will it be forgotten, how timeless it is. It's been a decade since the film was released, now that we're watching it. So some parts are timeless and some parts are kind of dated.
Oh yeah, we did notice there was some money on the screen and we all kind of went, old tenors!
Old tenors.
Even though it's been, a few weeks since they changed the tenors, but we already feel,
round pounds.
Paper £5 notes.
Paper £5.
Simpler time.
Flip phone.
The flip phones, especially.
Portable telephone.
Yes.
Not a touchscreen.
But on the other hand, a bit like what we mentioned in our Chicken Run episode, because it's set in rural England, which moves slower, part of it is still timeless. I imagine the sets and the streets they use probably look exactly the same today as they did a decade ago.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that they run past Boots, which I would guess is still there.
Yeah, probably.
And it's got the same logo.
Yeah.
Because listening to your Chicken Run episode as a loyal listener.
Edgar, you're the best.
Thanks.
I didn't know it was set in the 50s. That was a revelation that you introduced me to.
Yeah.
And I think, bar the certain giveaways of paper money and flip phones, it's a very sort of timeless piece. Obviously, Summerfield as a supermarket isn't as well known, or is it a thing anymore?
I don't think it's a thing anymore.
But like you say, a rural English village will remain mostly unchanged, and I think that's their nature.
It'll take a while before the world changes in such a way that it becomes noticeable when you watch the film.
Yes,
oh, that's weird, or anything like that.
Yeah, they still have a village. When the overlords rise up and we have to escape in the podcast time machine, then that'll be time to be forgotten.
Okay.
Be dated then.
That's a great summary there.
Thank you.
So speaking of escaping impending doom, we bring ourselves...
I love these segues every week.
Wow.
We bring ourselves onto our next question, the question that we confront so much in our everyday lives that we put it on the podcast. Guys, what's this film got to do with Brexit?
I had an idea, and
Yes.
it's spurred on by my listening to you two get very in-depth with political metaphors and
Please.
such. I was consciously trying to not work out an analogy, but...
Discover.
Yes, discover an analogy that I could use for this question. So, what have I written? Met. I've written the Met. So the Met Police, the Metropolitan Police...
In London.
Kick out Angel. They kick Angel away, Sergeant Angel. They give him a position in Sandford because he's making them all look bad, is a quote from the Chief Inspector. Initially, I thought it would be fairly obvious that Angel would be England and he would be moving away from the larger group of the EU, which would be the Met Police. But then when I thought about the motivations behind it... The Met Police is England, or the UK rather, And Angel is the Euro, or European Union,
Oh,
the
right.
EU. So they think, the Met think that they're better off without Angel.
Yes.
He's making them look bad,
Yeah.
in quotation marks.
He's one for rules and regulations.
Exactly. So they try to distance themselves from this thing, but it soon becomes apparent, and they try to claw their way back. And by the end of the film, they finally confront the problem and desperately, on the face of it, say, "Come back, please."
Yes.
And the EU, Sergeant European Union, says, "No, you distanced, you ran off. No, thank you. I'm going to stay where I am." So that's my
good.
Brexit analogy. Is that we've kicked off our best sergeants.
Oh no! With the record for the 100-metre dash.
Advanced cycling diploma
Yes.
is wasted now. Yeah, we've pushed them away, and that's a terrible thing.
That's fantastic.
We can't get our sergeants back.
Would you say Sergeant Angel, misspelled as Angle? Maybe like Angela Merkel?
Good lord. Wow.
I mean, it's clear.
Wow.
Merkel's been about since, 2005? So she was around when this film was...
Yeah,
I think it's pretty deliberate.
Clearly.
I think they're
Simon
visionaries ahead
Pegg
of their
and
time.
Edgar Wright saw
They saw this coming.
Brexit coming, and they were like, let's make a really veiled reference to Angela Merkel.
Yeah. Okay. So this film would appear to be an anti... Well, this film would be against Brexit, we think.
Yes, certainly.
I mean, it's pro...
I hope so.
It's hopeful for the EU, but...
Yeah, but not so hopeful for the Metropolitan Police Force.
As a separate analogy, as a backup, in case you didn't like that, I had a very tenuous link that the NWA yellow rosettes that they wore were a little bit UKIP-ish.
Yeah, a bit UKIP,
UKIPitous.
Yeah. Eukipidean.
Eukipidean, indeed. Eukyptious. Eucalyptus.
Yes.
They're a bit eucalyptus.
Let's get back to the topic.
Brexit. NWA rosettes are a bit... I don't know, they're vaguely political.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I looked at Paris when I said that. She's the local politics.
She's vaguely
Am
political.
I?
You're vaguely political.
Okay.
Run away from that.
Shall we move on
Let's move
to
on,
our
Paris.
next question?
Please do.
Which would be, it's an interesting one actually. If you could reproduce this in another genre, what would you choose?
Any thoughts?
Well, the thing is, I think this does really well with what it does, because it's obviously a cop film, but it's not taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And it's also a comedy film, and it is actually genuinely very funny.
Yes.
So I
well
find
balanced.
it difficult to really say what genre, because also it's multiple genres. It's it's an action film, it's a comedy film, it's sort of a horror film.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it does cover a lot of bases already.
It balances very well as well, and I think if you increase the context of the police force, the police service, if you increase the sort of action aspects, I think you would lose some of the comedy, because some of it is ingrained. So he's not actually shooting people, and the vicar shouts "Jesus Christ" when he gets shot, and things like that. I think if you tone up the action, then you'd lose a bit of that. I think if you toned up the comedy, then it would take some of the seriousness away, take some of the gravity. If you ramped up the horror aspect, I think it would be a bit
completely different film.
clumsy. Yeah, it would be a different film. It wouldn't be a comedy if you did too much horror. Unless it was a spoof horror, it would just then be another comedy film.
But then I suppose Shaun of the Dead covers the spoof horror.
Yes, exactly. So they've done spoof horror
Yes.
in the Cornetto trilogy spiritually. I had a thought.
Yes.
Certainly, as a decade-old film, it won't have seen 3D. So I thought you could either, hire all the actors again and get them to say their lines perfectly again, or we could
Movie magic.
spherical purple time machine.
Yeah.
We could travel back to 2007 with a 3D camera or 7, and refilm it in 3D. Get Edgar to get that on.
What would that add? What would you get out of
That
3D?
would look especially cool in the bit where Nick Frost crashes the car and Simon Pegg rolls forward to avoid it, and it sort of goes right into the camera.
Yes,
That would
there
be
we
great
go.
in 3D.
Because that was direct eye contact as well. That would be really good. Yeah, and
he
I
does
think
look at the camera quite a few times throughout the film, actually.
He does.
That's very, very expressive.
So either a 3D remodeling or remastering, but then I also thought a sort of a very vaguely genre, but the genre of crossover. So you could send Constable Nicholas Angel or Sergeant Nicholas Angel, depending which end of the film you'd like to pluck him from, and throw him into somewhere sleepy, somewhere like Midsummer, where there are murders. Murder. I think throwing that character, Nicholas Angel, into Midsummer, The Village, or even into The Archers, or something like that, I think would expand on the genre. So again, that could be another comedy thing, it could be a serious thing, it could be investigative. It's up to them, but I think, that would be a way to explore genres by separating it from the film so you don't muddy up what perfect balance it's got.
But which Nicholas Angel would you put into the Town of Midsummer?
I would probably say Sergeant, so end post Fuzz Angel. Post Fuzz Angel, please. Send him to
Why
the Archers. He's learnt from it, and he's become a bigger person, and he's accustomed to rural life now. If you send London Sergeant, Constable, if you send Constable Angel in, he'll still be a city cop, and it might just repeat itself. He's not used to this small town.
I would do something a little similar. I'd displace it, but I would re-genre this and set it in medieval Europe.
Oh, wow.
So instead of the police, you have sort of the guards or the sergeant at arms or the local constabulary, whatever it is. So you play it almost exactly the same. You have Simon Pegg, who's a stickler for the rules, but obviously since it's medieval times, people give even less of a shit about the rules.
He polishes his scimitar on a daily.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's trying to resolve disputes and stuff like that, but there's aristocrats and kings and stuff. I think that could be really fun. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've read Discworld or any Terry Pratchett.
No, I know of it.
But he writes a series of books about kind of a medieval police service. And I think with Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, that could be really fun.
Even if it's more of an action thing as well.
This.
I think because historical comedy like that can be a bit grating because they just play off he's a peasant, isn't that funny? But I think, displace the story and the characters into a deep historical setting like that.
Imagine, say, in Game of Thrones, for example, where there's like some grisly murder, and then in Game of Thrones the scene ends, but in this, the scene begins. Sergeant Angel steps onto the scene, is looking around, right, we'll need a cordon here, you speak to everyone involved.
And Rory McCann is still here!
I was going to say, you could reuse actors,
Yeah. Like, very interviewing Jamie Lannister, like, with his little notebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be really fun. I think it'd be really funny.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to change the genre without muddying the film, I think.
Okay, so I
Marvellous.
think that brings us on to our final question.
Yeah, just before we go on to that, do we have any miscellaneous thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of thoughts. We talked about our favourite characters, and there are some great ones, but I'd argue that one thing we haven't mentioned is I think the camera is its own character in this film, more so than usual. It's shot in this tremendously action-packed way, which contrasts with the sleepy village it's in. They never miss an opportunity for a visual joke. Like, whenever Nicholas does anything, it's shot a bit like someone loading a gun or... So in an action film, you'd have lots of shots of people cocking guns and that sort of thing. But they apply that to Nicholas putting his coat on, or opening a door, or pouring a pint of beer. Not only does it kind of drive you through some of the more what you would normally be a boring bit of the film, but it's a real
that's very Edgar Wright, so we could say that Edgar Wright is our favourite character, one of our favourite characters.
I think I'd agree with that. He certainly deserves a mention for that.
Excellent.
I'd also pick up on you don't really see any purple in the film.
I can't think of much.
You only see it twice, which is the guy who robs... There's a robbery, and the robber is wearing a purple jumpsuit.
He is.
And then after the robbery, the store owner decides not to press charges, and he's offering out biscuits, which are in a purple Maryland wrapper. So, I don't know what that means. It's just a little...
It's a separation, isn't it? It's a notable bit of the film.
I don't know why it's
to build up Skinner's character, I suppose. But, Auntie Jackie's sister's brother's boy. He's in purple.
Any other summarising thoughts? Anything else you want to say about this film?
It's just one of my favourite films, and like you say, it's probably been forgotten largely by people. But idiots such as myself keep coming back to it and can recite the full film off by heart. And I was told off by Paris earlier,
I didn't want you to do that for the whole film.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I've done that before. Friends will attest that I've done that. After a night out, we go back, we watch Hot Fuzz, and they have to lock me in a cupboard to prevent me from saying the whole thing. Yes, it's genuinely one of my favourite films, and thank you for having me on for this film as well.
Well, we're not quite finished, because we do have question 12.
12 questions.
Which is, of course.
Keep that brand alive. Love it.
Give this a more honest title. Ooh. So one thing I did notice here, I was doing some research, that the actual title of this came about because it was kind of parodying cop films, which Simon Pegg joked usually follow the formula of a random adjective and a random noun.
Bad boys.
Hot Fuzz, bad boys.
Point Break.
Exactly. So I was thinking, if we went by that structure, I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
One line that Danny says, because Danny's, one of the funny things about him is that he's not a great orator.
No.
And Nicholas points out that his father's appointed himself as judge, jury, and executioner. And Danny responds with, he's not Judge Judy and Executioner. And I think Judge Judy and Executioner would be a perfect film title for this.
Another bit of dialogue that I thought would be a good title was Make Sandford Great Again.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It is interesting how topical that became a decade later.
Yeah.
Because that is sort of the plot of the film, isn't it?
It is.
People wanting to make
I
Sandford
can't remember
great
who
again.
it is that says that, but yeah, definitely.
It's one of the
One of the
NWA.
villages, yeah.
It's sad that in real life we've parodied a comedy film. That life
Yeah,
is
I mean,
imitating art.
you know,
Life is imitated
the
art.
person
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
alluding to is one big joke, though, isn't he?
certainly.
Well, quite. Any other pictures?
can't think of
for-
anything,
for-
really.
Fascist hag.
Fascist hag.
Well, that is an adjective and a noun,
That's
isn't
what
it?
I'm thinking.
Fascist
It
hag.
is, yeah.
Police ham.
Please have official vocab guidelines.
Oh, yeah. Something around that.
Policeman officer.
The policeman officers.
Policeman officer.
Yeah.
All right.
The policeman officer and the monkey.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, no, that
There you go.
works.
Right
Sorted.
stuff. Policeman officer and monkey.
Okay.
Right.
So-
Marvellous.
All right, I reckon that'll do it.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
All right,
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it was great to have you, Edgar.
And I will go back into the kitchen cupboard that you found me in and resume my work.
Yeah, we'll lock the door.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, well, in that case, thank you very much for listening. Join us next week where we apply our incisive set of questioning to something else. It's not going to be a film, it's not going to be an album, it's going to be something new next
Ooh,
week.
very mysterious.
So stick around, it's going to be a good one. Until then, I've been Johnny.
I've been Paris.
I've been Edgar.
Bye!
See you in a bit.